As tensions across the Middle East continue to rise, Iran has issued a dramatic warning framed as a nuclear message directly aimed at President Trump, signaling a serious escalation in rhetoric that could further inflame regional and international anxieties. Iran declared that control of the Strait of Hormuz is its ultimate strategic leverage, calling it our nuclear bomb, and unleashed fierce rhetoric directed at Trump, implying that leveraging maritime chokepoints could be used as a powerful bargaining chip in any future confrontation. Reports of Mojtaba-led drone attacks in the Strait of Hormuz have alarmed U.S. forces operating in the area, as the growing use of unmanned aerial strikes introduces a new, unsettling threat that has rattled American troops and commanders alike. With strikes striking at critical American assets and installations that serve as the nerve center of U.S. operations in the Gulf, questions now mount over whether Trump will choose to respond, and if so, how forcefully he will act to reassert American deterrence. Iran continues to challenge U.S. President Donald Trump by tightening its grip on the strategic Strait of Hormuz, steadily increasing naval patrols and demonstrating new control measures that signal a more confrontational posture toward American interests in the region. Drawing an explicit nuclear comparison, Iran's deputy parliament speaker rolled out a pointed threat to Trump, using dramatic rhetoric to underscore Tehran's belief that its control over maritime chokepoints gives it a decisive advantage in any future standoff. Ali Nikzad claimed the Strait of Hormuz is effectively a nuclear bomb under Iran's tight grip, arguing that the nation's ability to disrupt shipping through the narrow waterway amounts to a strategic weapon with the power to reshape regional dynamics. The Iranian official also reportedly accused Trump of making contradictory statements, suggesting that mixed messages from the U.S. leadership have weakened American credibility and opened room for Tehran to escalate its own messaging. Iran alleged that the U.S. president's remarks about a potential peace deal carry no credibility, dismissing Washington's assurances as unreliable and arguing that verbal pledges cannot be trusted without tangible policy changes. The deputy speaker also reportedly warned that the pre-existing status quo at the Strait of Hormuz will not return, indicating Tehran's intention to maintain heightened control and to resist any attempts to restore previous patterns of maritime freedom. Iran is also allegedly mulling new legislation to impose tighter legal controls over the Strait of Hormuz, a move that would codify its enhanced authority and make any future reversal of restrictions more difficult. A stark warning came from Deputy Speaker Ali Nikzad, and I quote, "The Strait of Hormuz is more important to me than a nuclear bomb. In other words, our nuclear bomb is the Strait of Hormuz. They have 5,000 nuclear bombs themselves, but even if we had a nuclear bomb, we would never use it. The U.S. must either accept the new regional order or agree to Iran's conditions, otherwise the domino of humiliation for the enemies will persist." This statement from Iran arrives at a time of sharply elevated tensions with the United States in and around the Strait of Hormuz, where recent confrontations, patrols, and exchanges of rhetoric have created a volatile environment fraught with the risk of miscalculation. CENTCOM said on June 7 that U.S. forces shot down 2 Iranian one-way attack drones. The U.S. military said the drones posed a threat to international maritime traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. According to the CENTCOM statement, the incident was reported in the Strait of Hormuz on Saturday. U.S. Central Command said, and I quote, "Earlier today, U.S. forces in the Middle East shot down 2 Iranian one-way attack drones that threatened international maritime traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. American forces remain postured and ready to continue defending against Iranian aggression." Unquote. Iran's Revolutionary Guard has released its account of the events that it says led to the latest military confrontation with the United States. According to the IRGC, the standoff began when 4 oil tankers under U.S. military escort attempted to transit the Strait of Hormuz. The Guard Corps claimed the vessels were violating restrictions imposed by Tehran as they moved through the strategic waterway. IRGC statement read, and I quote, "We warn the aggressor and child-killing enemy that if these evils are repeated, a limited response will not suffice. You will be responsible for the consequences of the complete closure of the Strait of Hormuz to the export of oil and gas." American drones hit a telecommunications port in Keshem and a port in Sirik with 2 projectiles, unquote. Iran said its naval forces issued repeated warnings to the convoy, setting the stage for dangerous escalation in the Gulf. The IRGC says one of the tankers was intercepted and forced to stop after allegedly ignoring repeated warnings from Iranian naval forces. According to the Guard Corps, the remaining vessels then turned back and withdrew from the area, bringing the immediate standoff to an end. Meanwhile, Tehran significantly raised the stakes by carrying out strikes that hit U.S. command and control facilities in the Gulf, targeting the very nerve center of American operations and signaling a readiness to escalate both kinetic and strategic pressure. Fresh details are emerging about a reported strike on Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Defense Security Asia claimed Iranian missiles hit the U.S. Combined Air Operations Center. The attack reportedly took place during the opening phase of the 2026 U.S.-Iran war. The strike is being described as exposing growing vulnerabilities in America's forward command and control architecture. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar is widely seen as a key U.S. command hub in the Gulf. Even one of the most heavily protected operational headquarters reportedly could not fully shield itself. Defense Security Asia reported, and I quote, "According to details confirmed by senior American officials, multiple Iranian missiles directly struck the CAOC complex at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, rendering the facility completely unusable despite its hardened construction and extensive fiber optic command infrastructure. The operational consequences could have been strategically catastrophic because the CAOC had directed coalition air operations across the Middle East for more than 2 decades, including campaigns spanning Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, the Red Sea, and anti-Houthi operations. No American or coalition personnel were injured during the strike because U.S. planners had already anticipated the likelihood of Iranian missile attacks against Al Udeid and relocated operational personnel before the conflict escalated into open regional warfare. The Pentagon had quietly transferred critical air campaign coordination functions to Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina, where a parallel CAOC architecture had already been expanded and exercised as part of long-term contingency planning. The successful transition of command authority from Qatar to the continental United States demonstrated the Pentagon's increasing reliance on distributed command and control structures, designed to preserve operational continuity during high-intensity missile conflicts. The strike also reinforced growing Pentagon concerns that 4 deployed American military hubs within approximately 175 miles of Iran now operate permanently inside Tehran's expanding ballistic missile engagement envelope. Unquote. Notably, the hardened CAOC complex reportedly cost about $60 million to build. The reported Iranian strike showed how relatively inexpensive ballistic missile salvos can threaten such facilities. Iran's IRGC has claimed responsibility for the latest attacks on Kuwait and Bahrain. The IRGC said it targeted U.S. military bases in the 2 Gulf states, according to Times of Israel. Iran said the attack was retaliation for U.S. strikes on its radar sites earlier in the night. IRGC statement said, and I quote, "At 1:30 this morning, for offending tankers, with the instigation and guidance of the U.S. aggressor army, without coordination and without paying attention to the warnings of the IRGC Navy, intended to leave the Strait of Hormuz illegally." Following this incident, at 2 o'clock, American drones hit a telecommunications tower in Keshem and a mast in Sirik with 2 projectiles. In response to the aggression of the American child-killing army, 2 American air bases in Kuwait named Ali al-Salem and the remaining important facilities of the 5th Fleet of the American Navy in Bahrain were immediately targeted by IRGC Aerospace Force ballistic missiles. "We warn the aggressor and child-killer enemy that if these evils are repeated, a limited response will not suffice. You will be responsible for the consequences of the complete closure of the Strait of Hormuz on the exit of your oil and gas." Unquote.